This begins chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Yoga, the Yoga of Knowledge. Here, Krishna reveals the eternal wisdom of yoga, showing Arjuna that knowledge and action, when united, lead to true liberation. In verse 1, Krishna says, I taught this eternal yoga to the sun god Vivistvan. Vivistvan taught it to Manu, and Manu passed it to King Krishna explains that this wisdom is not new. It is timeless, passed from teacher to disciple, from kings to sages. Psychology also affirms that human civilization is built on continuity. Wisdom survives only when carried forward. Neuroscience calls this transgenerational memory. Habits and teachings shape not just individuals, but entire societies. In verse 2, Krishna continues, this supreme science was thus received through tradition by the royal sages. But in time, this chain was broken, and the knowledge was lost. Here Krishna highlights a danger. When wisdom is not practiced, it fades. Logic shows this truth in history. Great civilizations collapse when their guiding principles are forgotten. Even in psychology, unused neural pathways weaken and die. Wisdom survives only when lived. In verse 3, Krishna tells Arjuna, that same ancient knowledge I now teach to you, because you are my devotee and my friend. Therefore, you can understand this secret. This shows the personal bond between guru and disciple. True wisdom is not given randomly. It flows where there is trust, humility, and readiness. Psychology agrees. Learning is deepest when the mind is open and the heart is receptive. Arjuna, amazed, asks in verse 4, you were born just recently, O Krishna. How am I to understand that you taught this yoga in ancient times, long before me? This is the human doubt. How can the eternal be present in the form of the present? Arjuna asks honestly, and Krishna uses this moment to reveal his divine nature. In verse 5, Krishna answers, many births have both you and I passed. O Arjuna, you do not remember them, but I remember them all. Krishna declares his divinity. He is beyond time, carrying memory of all creation. Psychology says humans forget past experiences because memory is limited. But Krishna, the infinite consciousness, is never clouded by forgetfulness. In verse 6, Krishna continues, although I am unborn, eternal, and the Lord of all beings, I appear by my own divine power, in every age. Here is the great secret. God does not incarnate out of necessity, but out of compassion. Logic supports this. When balance is lost, a higher principle must intervene to restore harmony. Just as immune cells rush to heal a wound, divinity descends to heal the wounds of Dharma. And in verse 7 and 8, Krishna gives his immortal promise. Whenever righteousness declines and unrighteousness rises, O Arjuna, I manifest myself, to protect the good, to destroy the wicked, and to re-establish Dharma. I appear age after age. This is the heartbeat of the Gita, the vow of God to humanity. Psychology shows that when people believe justice will come, hope keeps them strong. Neuroscience proves that hope itself activates survival circuits in the brain. Krishna's words are not only divine assurance, but also a psychological power, the promise that Dharma always returns. In verse 9, Krishna declares, one who knows the truth of my divine birth and activities does not take birth again after leaving the body, but attains my eternal abode. Here Krishna teaches that liberation comes from understanding his divine role in creation. To know that God's actions are not bound by karma frees us from fear of endless rebirth. Psychology reflects this. When the mind accepts a higher purpose beyond mortality, anxiety about death lessens. Neuroscience even shows that spiritual faith calms the brain's fear centers, giving peace. In verse 10, he says, freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me. Many have become purified by knowledge and reached my being. The path is clear. Those who let go of fear and selfish desire become one with the divine. Psychology also proves that letting go of fear rewires the brain, reducing stress. The absence of fear allows wisdom to flourish, just as a still lake reflects the sky. In verse 11, Krishna reveals, as men approach me, I reward them accordingly. All paths lead to me. O Arjuna, this verse shows Krishna's inclusiveness. No matter the religion, culture, or path, all sincere devotion ultimately reaches the same truth. Logic agrees. Rivers may flow from different mountains, but they all merge into the sea. Psychology supports this too. People flourish when they follow a path aligned with their nature, as long as it leads to higher values. In verse 12, Krishna explains, those who desire material success worship the gods. Quick are the results for such people in the world of men. Krishna acknowledges human tendencies. Many seek smaller goals instead of the eternal. Desire for wealth, power, or recognition gives quick results, but never lasting freedom. Neuroscience confirms this. Short-term rewards trigger dopamine spikes, but they fade quickly, leading to craving again. Lasting fulfillment lies only in higher purpose. In verse 13, Krishna states a profound truth. The four divisions of society were created by me, according to qualities and actions. Though I am their creator, know that I am beyond action and changeless. Here Krishna explains Varna, not as birth, but as qualities and actions. society functions best when people live according to their strengths. Logic supports this. Just as an orchestra needs different instruments, society needs varied roles. But Krishna also says, though he created this system, he himself remains untouched. In verse 14, he says, "Actions do not bind me, for I have no desire for results." One who understands this truth is also not bound by karma. This is the secret of freedom: act without attachment. The wise work like the sun, shining without needing reward. Psychology calls this flow state. When action becomes pure expression, not a means to an end, the mind finds peace. And in verse 15, Krishna adds, knowing this, even the ancient seekers of liberation performed action. Therefore, you too should act as the ancients did. The lesson is timeless. Saints, sages, and heroes all acted without attachment. Their legacy proves that selfless action is not weakness, but the highest strength. Logic shows, a tree bears fruit for others, yet remains rooted in itself. So too, the wise act for the world, not for the ego. In verse 16, Krishna tells Arjuna, what is action, and what is inaction? Even the wise are confused in this matter. Therefore, I shall teach you the truth, by knowing which you shall be freed from all misfortune. Here Krishna points out a deep human dilemma. Sometimes we act and regret, sometimes we avoid action and still feel guilty. The confusion of should I act or should I not has haunted humanity forever. Psychology calls this decision paralysis. The stress of overthinking keeps us trapped. Krishna now offers clarity. In verse 17, he explains, the nature of action should be understood, as well as the nature of forbidden action, and also inaction. The path of karma is difficult to understand. This is Krishna's warning. Not all action is righteous, and not all inaction is harmless. Logic proves this. If a doctor refuses to treat a patient out of fear, his inaction becomes harmful. Psychology also shows that passivity in the face of wrong creates guilt and long-term mental burden. In verse 18, Krishna delivers the paradox. One who sees inaction in action, and action in inaction, is wise among men. He is a yogi and a true performer of all actions. This is a riddle. How can inaction exist with inaction? The answer lies in intention. A person may be outwardly busy, but if his mind is detached, he remains inwardly still. And one who outwardly appears inactive, but is consumed by desire, is truly restless. Neuroscience agrees. The brain's stress circuits are not triggered by physical work, but by mental attachment. True stillness comes from the mind, not the body. In verse 19, Krishna explains further, he whose every act is free from desire and selfish motive, whose actions are purified by the fire of knowledge, he is called wise. Here the lesson is clear. Knowledge burns away ego-driven action. Psychology confirms this. When people act with purpose larger than themselves, their stress lowers, their motivation deepens, and their well-being improves. Action becomes joy instead of burden. In verse 20, Krishna adds, having abandoned attachment to the fruits of action, ever content and dependent on nothing, though engaged in work, he does nothing. This is the state of freedom, working tirelessly, yet untouched. Just as a lotus grows in muddy water, but remains unstained, the wise live in the world but remain pure. Neuroscience also shows that detachment reduces the grip of reward-seeking circuits, allowing for balanced and peaceful living. In verse 21, Krishna continues, one who has no desire, whose mind and self are under control, who gives up all sense of possession, though working, does not incur sin. Freedom is not the absence of work, but the absence of greed and ego. Logic shows, a soldier fighting selflessly for justice carries honor, while one fighting for pride carries karma. Psychology agrees. When action is done without self-interest, it uplifts both the doer and the world. And in verse 22, Krishna beautifully says, content with whatever comes, free from envy. Beyond dualities, balanced in success and failure, such a person is never bound. Even while acting, this is emotional mastery. Joy in all circumstances. Psychology names this resilience. Neuroscience proves that acceptance rewires the brain, calming stress pathways and strengthening inner peace. Krishna teaches that freedom is not escaping life, but living in balance with it. In verse 23, Krishna says, one who is free from attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, and who performs action as a sacrifice. All his actions dissolve. Here Krishna introduces the idea that every action can be an offering, a yajna. When work is done, not for the ego, but as service to the divine, it leaves no karmic trace. Psychology reflects this. When people frame their work as meaningful contribution, stress turns into fulfillment. In verse 24, he explains a great secret. Brahman is the offering. Brahman is the oblation. By Brahman, it is offered into the fire of Brahman. Truly, Brahman is attained by him who sees Brahman in all actions. This is one of the most profound verses of the Gita. It declares that all of life is sacred. The giver, the gift, and the receiver are all divine. Neuroscience echoes this. The experience of oneness, often reached through meditation, quiets the brain's fear centers and awakens compassion. Logic supports it too. If all rivers flow to the same sea, then all acts of sincerity reach the same divine. In verse 25, Krishna continues, some yogis perform sacrifice to the gods alone, while others offer sacrifice by offering the self into the fire of the Supreme. Different people approach truth differently. Some pray outwardly, others turn inward and surrender their ego. Both paths lead forward, as long as sincerity is present. Psychology also reveals this truth. Outward ritual may give structure, while inner devotion transforms the heart. In verse 26 he adds, some offer hearing and the senses into the fire of self-control. Others offer sound and sense objects into the fire of the senses. This is symbolic language. It means some people sacrifice their restless senses by practicing discipline. Others sacrifice their cravings by controlling what they take in. Neuroscience aligns here. Rewiring the brain begins with what we feed our senses. What we watch, hear, and consume shapes our thoughts and behavior. In verse 27, Krishna explains another type of sacrifice. Others offer all the functions of the senses and breath into the fire of yoga, lit by Here he speaks of yogis who master their breath and senses, burning ignorance away in the fire of awareness. Psychology calls this self-regulation, the ability to master impulses and align them with long-term wisdom. Neuroscience shows that breath control directly calms the nervous system, reducing fear and sharpening focus. In verse 28, Krishna continues, others offer wealth, austerity, study of scriptures, and knowledge as sacrifice. All are strict in vows and discipline. This teaches that every sacrifice counts. For some, charity is the path. For others, study or discipline is their offering. The form matters less than the sincerity behind it. Logic proves this. A drop of water may seem small, but in a desert, it saves a life. In verse 29, he explains yet another type. Others offer the vital breath in the outgoing breath. In the outgoing breath into the incoming, controlling the flow of inhalation and exhalation. Thus, they regulate prana, practicing pranayama. Here Krishna acknowledges yogic practices of breath control. Neuroscience has now confirmed what Krishna said ages ago. Controlled breathing reduces stress hormones, balances the brain, and creates clarity of mind. And in verse 30, Krishna concludes this section. All these performers of sacrifice, knowing sacrifice, are cleansed of sin. Those who partake of the nectar of sacrifice attain the eternal Brahman. For one who does not sacrifice, O Arjuna, even this world is not attained. How then? The lesson is clear. Life itself is sacrifice. Without giving, there is no receiving. Without contribution, there is no growth. Psychology supports this. Fulfillment in life comes not from selfish gain, but from meaningful giving. Logic too agrees. A tree lives by giving fruit, a river by giving water, the sun by giving light. So too, humans live fully only when they give. In verse 31, Krishna says, those who partake of the nectar of sacrifice reach the eternal Brahman, O best of the Kurush. This world is not for one who does not perform sacrifice. How then can he attain the higher? Here Krishna makes it clear, sacrifice is not optional. It is the very rhythm of life. Psychology agrees. Without effort, discipline, and giving, no meaningful progress happens. Neuroscience also shows that reward comes after effort. The brain's dopamine system only activates when challenge and sacrifice precede achievement. In verse 32, he continues, thus many kinds of sacrifice are spread before Brahman, know them all to be born of action, and thus you will be liberated. Every path of discipline, whether charity, breath control, meditation, or study, is valid. But Krishna stresses, they must be practiced with awareness. Logic reinforces this. Any tool, however sharp, must be used with understanding, or it may cause harm. In verse 33, Krishna declares a turning point. Better than the sacrifice of material possessions is the sacrifice of knowledge. All action, O son of Pritha, without knowledge, is inferior. Knowledge is the true purifier. This is a profound teaching. Knowledge clarifies the purpose of action. Without knowledge, effort may be wasted or even harmful. Psychology echoes this. Clarity of purpose is the foundation of motivation. Neuroscience supports it too. When the brain understands why an action matters, the reward centers fire stronger, creating resilience. In verse 34, Krishna shows the way to gain true knowledge. Learn this by surrender, by inquiry, and by service. The wise who have realized the truth will instruct you in knowledge. This emphasizes humility. Real wisdom is not taken. It is received through respect and devotion to the teacher. Psychology shows that humility opens the mind for learning, while arrogance blocks it. Logic also confirms, if a vessel is already full, no new water can enter. Only an empty vessel can receive. In verse 35, he adds, when you have realized this knowledge, O Pandava, you will no longer fall into delusion. By it, you will see all beings in yourself, and then in me. This is the vision of oneness. Once knowledge dawns, distinctions fade. Psychology calls this unity consciousness. Neuroscience links it to states of deep meditation where the sense of ego dissolves. Logic shows it too. All rivers may appear separate, but in the ocean, they are one. In verse 36, Krishna assures Arjuna, even if you are the most sinful of all sinners, you will cross over all sin by the raft of knowledge alone. Here Krishna offers hope. Knowledge is the great purifier. Psychology proves that insight breaks cycles of guilt and negative behavior. Neuroscience supports it too. Awareness changes the wiring of the brain, allowing new habits to form and old patterns to dissolve. In verse 37, he continues, as fire burns fuel to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to ashes. This is one of the most powerful metaphors in the Gita. Just as fire consumes everything without distinction, true knowledge burns away all past karma. Logic agrees. When light shines, darkness cannot remain. Finally, in verse 38, Krishna declares, in this world, there is nothing so purifying as knowledge. One who is perfected in yoga, in due time, discovers this within his own heart. Here lies the essence of Jnana yoga. Real knowledge is not borrowed, it awakens from within. Psychology affirms that self-realization brings the deepest fulfillment. Neuroscience shows that wisdom integrates both hemispheres of the brain, harmonizing logic with intuition. In verse 39, Krishna explains, the man who is full of faith, who is devoted to it, and who has subdued the senses, attains knowledge. Having attained knowledge, he soon reaches supreme peace. Here Krishna shows the formula, faith plus discipline plus sense control equals wisdom. Psychology tells us that belief fuels motivation. Without belief, the mind will not persist. Neuroscience also confirms that faith and trust activate brain pathways that reduce fear and enhance learning. Logic too agrees. If one does not believe in the possibility of growth, they will never take the first step. In verse 40, he warns, but the ignorant, the faithless, and the doubting soul is lost. For the doubter, there is neither this world, nor the next, nor happiness. This is a sharp truth. Doubt destroys. Psychology shows that chronic doubt paralyzes decision-making, leading to inaction. Neuroscience reveals that uncertainty triggers stress circuits in the brain, preventing clarity and confidence. Logic also says, a boat stuck between two shores never reaches either. In verse 41, Krishna reassures, one who has renounced action through yoga, whose doubts are dispelled by knowledge, who is self-possessed, is not bound by karma. O Dhananga, knowledge dissolves doubt and frees the mind from bondage. Psychology teaches that clarity removes fear. Neuroscience proves that when uncertainty vanishes, the brain's stress hormones drop, allowing inner calm. Logic affirms, once the path is clear, the traveler walks with ease. In verse 42, Krishna concludes this teaching. Therefore, with the sword of knowledge, cut asunder this doubt born of ignorance in your heart. Stand up, Arjuna, and take refuge in yoga. The message is direct. Doubt is the enemy. Knowledge is the weapon. Yoga is the refuge. Psychology echoes this. Growth begins when the fog of confusion is lifted. Neuroscience tells us the brain thrives when focus is sharp. Logic adds, no army can fight with hesitation. Clarity is victory itself.